It said, war, war, never changes. Women do. Through the roads they walk, and this road has reached its end.
Maybe you should have mentioned just how much walking there is, Ulysses. I mean, seriously, how long until civilization advances to the point of getting some proper transportation again? Maybe the NCR will get some working cars in the future. Makes me wonder what my place will be in the future. Well, fuck it. My feet are sore and I'm retiring.
This seems a rather desperate cry for attention, my little teddy bear.
What did you want to discuss?
Me. But, thanks for coming to listen to my speech, guys. I guess I'll get into it. So, the Courier's legend starts, as most stories do, with a transdimensional symbiote. What, is that not how most stories start? No one knows from where they came, but I knew of 3 that entered our reality. Unfortunately for them, our reality was pretty crappy. Well, it actually starts much earlier, so I'll back up a bit.
In 2000, let's see, carry the 3, then count backwards from the Great Static, or beyond.
Most of what I know I had to learn later on, as I forgot most of it when I was shot in the head. I do know, though, that the 21st century saw rising tensions between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. At the time, the Commonwealth Institute of Technology led the world in scientific innovation. Robert House, a student of the CIT, learned from their fledgling robotics and androids and left to found his own company, Robco Industries. By the 2050s, Robco was the largest robotics manufacturing company in the world. Robco made the unified operating system and the majority of robots in the US, including Protectrons, Sentrybots, and Securitrons. Robco and their rival, General Atomics International, teamed up on a few occasions to make Mr. Handys, Miss Nannies, Mr. Gutsies, Mr. Orderlies, RoboBrains, and Liberty Prime.
Why, yes, we are filled with the knowledge you speak of.
While Robco would continue to toil in secret on Liberty Prime, House developed his own androids. Robco's first androids were the deadly Assaultrons that were sold to the military, but by the late 2060s, House advanced the biotechnology that made the RoboBrain possible and developed the Ares androids, designed to be personal entertainment androids, or really, robotic prostitutes. House wasn't able to create true artificial androids, for within the Ares were organic tissue and human organs. While Ares only existed as female, an additional male line was in development. However, House calculated that the odds that the world would fall into global thermonuclear war exceeded a 99% probability, and so he dedicated himself to preserving himself and preserving his hometown of Las Vegas into the future.
What? Why would you do either of those things? That is madness.
A crude question, crudely asked.
House sold off unnecessary assets, including the entire Ares lines of androids, to the US military's Air Force before a single one had been sold to the public. The Air Force believed the Ares would make great tacticians and be able to make in-flight calculations that put their other hardware to shame. So, using military technicians, the Air Force reprogrammed the Ares into some of their best pilots. Unfortunately, their reprogramming wasn't perfect, like how the Ares at Nellis Air Force Base remembered much of her promiscuity. This is where I come into the story, for what would be my Ares body was left neglected in its pod somewhere in the southwestern US. By 2077, the US remained functioning after barring all attempts from other countries to take the world's last remaining resources and fossil fuels. China, with nothing to lose, set up multiple infiltrations and sleeper cells within the US, and they sent many nuclear submarines towards the coast of the US. Tensions were at an all-time high, and the world was closer to nuclear war than ever before. Then, apparently, a US general gave up nuclear launch codes when being probed by a Zaytan alien. Not long after, nukes were being launched around the world as countries retaliated against the nuclear threat. Most of those who survived the Great War did so in underground vaults, either within those made by the Vault-Tec Corporation or directly by the US government. A handful of artificial superintelligences existed prior to the Great War, and some survived after it. I think they could have done something to prevent the cataclysm, but they seemed oddly complacent and erratic.
An unprovoked attack! Unprovoked!
Oh, I don't think so.
For the next century, people emerged from vaults and struggled to survive in the wasteland, but eventually they began to form new civilizations. The remnants of the US government had a head start upon the Wastelanders, whom they perceived as subhuman, and they reorganized themselves into the Enclave. When the Enclave tried to resume control of the Wasteland by using the forced evolutionary virus to commit mass genocide in the 2140s, new factions had arisen to oppose them. The New California Republic, with the help of the Brotherhood of Steel, defeated the Enclave, took their technology, and executed Enclave war criminals. However, the Enclave did not cease to exist. Instead, they fractured into many splinter factions, much like how the Brotherhood of Steel did. The result would eventually form the Enclave remnants, the Resurgent Enclave, the Enclave Patriots, the Capital Enclave, the New Enclave, the Richardson Elite, Central, and many other small groups of Enclave survivors.
Enough! Stop filling my precious brain cell units with irrelevant data!
Okay, I'll move on. Enclave President Dick Richardson miraculously survived the defeat of the Enclave, and he outlived his body by moving his brain into a control station in a top-secret facility on an island in the Gulf of California. From there, he founded the Resurgent Enclave. They abandoned the FEV project, but they started Project Sigma, which enhanced their 6 best Enclave soldiers in an effort to create super soldiers so the Enclave could rise again. That wasn't enough, so they then turned to Project Eden, which used genetic manipulation to create better super soldiers. They remixed the DNA of the top performer in Project Sigma, codenamed Watcher, to create 23 enhanced human embryos. Only 3 of the subjects survived. TS-17 was named Emma, but she was scrapped and reconstituted within TS-21, also named Emma. There was also TS-23 named Claude.
Behold the power of science!
TS-18 nearly failed like the others, so they decided upon a radical experiment. They intertwined the child's internal organs and DNA with the bioarchitecture of an unactivated Ares at the facility. TS-18 survived and was named Nuclear, and that's when I first awoke. The unorthodox experiment might explain why I've often considered myself to have multiple personality disorder, although I've never been diagnosed. Emma, Claude, and I were genetic abominations, I more so, but we had the uncanny ability to heal at an alarming rate from any wound. We were siblings, and Watcher considered himself our father. Richardson dictated for the experiment that one subject would be sent west, one would be sent east, and one would remain in the facility, all to examine our viability in the wasteland. They sent Emma east, who trekked all the way into Montana. Claude stayed behind. They sent me west, and I struggled to survive in San Bernardino. We were all imprinted with voice commands that would be used when they decided to reclaim us.
Yeah, crazy, right? Something right out of a midnight science fiction feature. Ridiculous. What are the odds?
By the 2240s, a tribe in the Black Bear Canyons called the Exodites housed me and several other orphan children. I was different from the rest of my Ares body, but I had the mentality of a child just like the other orphans. The children split off into individual friendships, and I grew close to the 2 other children, Mandy and Sean. The Exodites marked us with star tattoos as some type of familial signifier. This was when the transdimensional symbiote entered our reality, for one attached itself to me. I later would learn that 2 children of the Enclave Patriots also experienced the same thing. The symbiote gave me a unique power. Anytime that I died, I could jump my consciousness and try again. The Enclave wanted a super soldier, but I became something far more powerful. However, I was still but a child, and didn't appreciate this power at the time.
What? Nonsense.
That's simply not true.
It may be far-fetched, but it is the truth. Anyhow, another faction ended up destroying the Exodites, killing most and scattering the rest, but they left most of us children where we were, unscathed. Some scouts from the nearby Vault 18 found us and brought us to the Vault. While Vault 18 was funded by a powerful senator before the Great War, it still had a diabolical experiment to it, like most Vault-Tec vaults. Vault 18's experiment was twofold. The vault had been populated with a disproportionately large amount of elderly people, and the Overseer had access to a nuclear self-destruct program beneath the vault. Apparently, the majority of young people from the vault were tired of caring for the old, and left in a max exodus not long before their scouts found us. Many of us children were quickly adopted by the members of the Vault, and we symbolized hope for the old generation to ensure a younger generation would keep Vault 18 alive.
Ha ha ha, la la la, dee dee dee.
Unfortunately, no one adopted Mandy, Sean, and me, but Dr. Rossman looked out for us. We were given the last name Star, after the marks on our bodies, and the three of us took care of each other. 20 years passed, and I became an adult and a smart jock, taking pride in both my intelligence and athletic capabilities. I joined Coach Bragg's football team as the quarterback and became quite popular in the Vault after our team's victory. Not long after I joined Vault 18 security, I had to protect the Vault against an uprising of Enclave patriots led by Bragg and his sister. They massacred our elders, but I managed to fight my way out with as many survivors as I could. I killed the Braggs, but they used their symbiotes to come back. I wonder where they are now. In the aftermath of the Enclave Patriots' attack on Vault 18, the nuclear self-destruct was detonated, leaving nothing behind. Some of my peers, and 2 robots, managed to survive, specifically Jennifer, Jamie, Eric, Johnny, Ben, Kira, Bark, and Alpha. Being forced to wander the wasteland once more, we stuck together as we made our way out of the chaotic Black Bear Canyons.
Excellent idea.
My memory gets pretty fuzzy after that. Something must have happened to the other survivors of Vault 18 because we split up not long after that ordeal. It is my hypothesis we must have found some type of Enclave cryostasis technology that they used, but I was unfortunately not able to use it, possibly because of my Ares body. I don't know for sure though. I do know that I ended up traveling into NCR territory by myself and made a living as a courier. A decade passed, but my body never aged. In my journeys as a courier, I came across a fledgling nation east of the NCR called the Divide, which was built upon a former military and Commonwealth Defense Administration base, complete with pre-war nuclear silos.
Eureka!
I devoted myself to sustaining the friendly nation of the Divide with trade from the NCR, and I became a hero to the locals for keeping the town sustained with my trade route. Unfortunately, one package I delivered soon after sent a signal to the silos underneath the area. The military base is detonated, setting off a chain reaction with nuclear warheads and a top-secret big mountain meteorological storm system that wiped Divide off the map. I was horrified when I learned of the tragedy, and it would be a long time before I learned of my role in their destruction. I moved on, but by the next decade I had quit being a courier. I took an interest in tinkering with robots, and I became romantically involved with a fellow tinkerer named Sarah. We moved out into the Mojave Wasteland and settled down in Prim.
I have no idea. I'm a robotical engineer, not a rememberer of archaic trade routines.
I decided to propose to Sarah to ask her to be my fiancé, but I also decided to make some money to buy something nice for her. I enlisted as a courier once more with the Mojave Express. House survived the Great War with his robotic preservation technology, and he had recently awoken from a century-long coma. He had single-handedly used his Robco resources to save Las Vegas, and when he awoke, he rebuilt it into New Vegas. His shining city had been the main attraction of the Mojave Wasteland, and he hired 7 couriers through his proxy Securitron named Victor to deliver packages to New Vegas. Little did I know that I accepted a huge sum to deliver the Platinum Chip, the key to unlocking House's weapon systems. Benny, a leader of one of House's casinos, kidnapped me, shot me in the head, and buried me in an unmarked grave near Good Springs.
You're making me question your usefulness, you realize.
After Benny left, Victor dug me out of the grave and brought me to Doc Mitchell in Good Springs for immediate medical attention. While I was in critical condition, a raider was hired to kill Sarah, just because she made contact with an artificial superintelligence in her tinkering. Mitchell brought me back from the brink of death, but the bullet to my brain gave me amnesia. I knew nothing of my past aside from my name. When they heard the news, the survivors of Vault 18 reunited with me, but I was still unable to recall anything more than a single memory of the day the vault was attacked. For all intents and purposes, I awoke from my amnesia, a changed woman. But I carved Benny's name into the bullet Mitchell removed from my head. I set out to explore the world, and make it a better place. But I would make sure Benny met justice.
Would you care for a mentat?
When we're done here, alright? Anyway, when exploring the Mojave Wasteland, I had many adventures, and I made many companions. I killed a lot of people to survive, but I feel I helped out far more people. I met many factions, and I chose to involve myself in the Mojave's affairs with the express purpose of creating the best future possible for the people of the Wasteland as possible. My role often became that of a peacemaker, although often I was forced to make tough decisions where the right choice wasn't very clear. Nevertheless, I did the best I could, and I don't regret my actions. The hardest choice was choosing between House and the NCR. I agree with most of House's values, but he valued humanity more than he valued humans. The NCR would have destroyed the Mojave as they were, but I worked with them to become better rulers than House ever would have been to the people of the Mojave.
Worry about House? Why would I do this? Hope he died alone in a dingy room, streaming his last remaining bodily fluids into jars.
I don't respond well to threats. Now, where were we?
And him and his dirty girl bots. Don't even get me started on those filthy biological catcher's mitts.
Hey, Absolute Zero, I was one of those dirty girl bots.
You're always yelling! My receptors can't take it anymore! And neither can my feelings!
Shut your trap and get along with everyone, okay? If I have to, I'll make sure you guys don't kill each other, but I'm not going to be around forever.
If you must, he's clearly deranged.
Klein, do you object to the expertise House has brought?
Well, no, not currently.
Well enough. We can put the past behind us, I think.
Thank you, House. And again, sorry. As I was saying, I went on many adventures after that, although I kept finding myself drawn back to the Mojave. I discovered Central at Terrace Irradiant on the Moonbase. I was enslaved under the Toxic Cloud in the Sierra Madre. I settled a tribal war in Zion Canyon. I also had my brain scooped out and given its own robo-body, whilst leaving my original body a cyborg with Tesla coils to transmit signals from my brain with a degree of autonomy, all in Big Mountain. I met another courier and had a showdown with him in the ruins of the Divide. I stopped him from nuking the NCR's Long 15, but I allowed the other nuke to hit the Legion's Dry Wells military stronghold. I made a lovely home in the Baja Resort. I settled a pre-war military dispute in Outer Nevada. I discovered the secrets of the Boulder Dome and the Colorado Wastes. I excavated alien technology in Area 51, which would prove interesting to you guys.
We are laboring away, scientifically, on your behalf. Toilless researchers, that is what we are. Toil, toil, toil.
Let's see. I was embroiled in gang wars in New Reno, and I reunited with Emma. I was dragged back to the unknown island, and destroyed the resurgent enclave who created me. But Emma left in despair. I never heard from her again. I rescued a baby from cannibals in the Forbidden Zone. I put a stop to a maniacal drug lord in Mesa City. I joined Rockwell on a cross-country journey to save them from the tantrum virus. We trekked through Paradox, Colorado, Raytown, Missouri, Bloomfield, Ohio, and into Wilmington, Vermont, where we took the Rockwell superstructure back from the tantrum. I became a bounty hunter and took down vile villains like Sergio and Via de Hierro. I assisted the town of Silverwood in fighting off the Legion, even if they didn't quite deserve my help. I barely survived a confrontation with the infamous Marco at Frost Hill. I rescued some slaves from the Legion's Canyon Cove. I fought a last stand with the NCR against the Legion at Forward Operating Base Omega. I even met actual good people once part of the Enclave and joined them in the fight against their rivals, the Richardson Elite, at the Corvega manufacturing plant, which once manufactured pre-war cars and stuff.
What, like stuff? Things?
During my travels, I made many allegiances, friends, and romances. In addition to once being enlisted in Vault 18 security, and a traitorous member of the Enclave Patriots, I became a mercenary for the NCR, a bounty hunter for Randall and Associates, a guard for the Van Graffs, an honorary member of the White Glove Society, a member of the New Enclave, a paladin of the Brotherhood of Steel, a doctor for the followers of the Apocalypse, and the overseer of Rockwell. While I had some romantic flings with Ada Strauss, Red Lucy, Sarah Weintraub, and Benny, don't judge me, I made some truly fulfilling relationships, often not limiting myself to one person at a time. I came to love Willow, my doting girlfriend, and Andrea, the only other Aries I ever knew. In time, other romantic interests with me bubbled to the surface in Jennifer, Jamie, and Niner.
Perhaps you are stuck in a looping gesture of verbal intercourse.
I did as many things as I possibly could to forestall the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, but it was inevitable and could only be avoided for so long. Siding with the NCR, I led the offense into the Legion Legates camp. In addition to some of my loyal companions, my backup in the battle included the NCR, the Mojave Brotherhood of Steel, the Enclave Remnants, the Followers of the Apocalypse, and the Boomers. While defeating the Legion's forces, I confronted Legate Lanius, the monster of the East. While I normally tried to reconcile peacefully, I found the Legion completely irreconcilable, and their actions were deplorable. Therefore, I had spent much time in my adventures beating the Legion into submission, taking out their encampments and highest-ranking leaders. I had destroyed the Legion at Cottonwood Cove, Nelson, Silverwood, Canyon Cove, Dry Wells, and the Fort, and I had killed Aurelius of Phoenix, Dead Sea, Titus Vulcanus, Titus Atticus, Gaius Magnus, Wolpus Inculta, and even Caesar himself. So, Legate Lanius, before me, was the last remaining potential leader the Legion had at the moment. After such a thorough defeat, I convinced him to give up and retreat, securing victory for the NCR.
How gracious of you! A mannerly killing!
After the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, many things changed in the Mojave as the NCR began the process of annexation. I tried my best to make the future for the people I met in my travels to be as best as they possibly could be, and I felt I accomplished that. The end of the NCR Legion War also marked the end of that chapter in my life. I had gone through so much, and I began to feel burned out. Because of all of my roles in the Mojave, many factions wanted me to stick around to help them move into the new era. But I felt I had already played my part as the peacemaker. So, a few of my loyal companions and I ducked out of the Mojave before our fame became too much of a nuisance. Willow took me to a place in Utah, where we settled down in a refurbished suburban home. The house was one of many, though, as we essentially started our own neighborhood or tiny village with our trusted companions that chose to come with us. The only factions there that tried to bother us were some tribes like the Sorrows, Dead Horses, and occasionally 80s Scouts, which knew better than to mess with us.
And why would you have done that?
Well, while I'd occasionally make treks in the wasteland, I essentially entered retirement. But our living situation was interesting. Willow and I, of course, shared a house, but Andrea Aries 214 also lived with us. Other houses belonged to Johnny Matheson, Jennifer Hale, Kira Mann, Jamie and Eric Campbell, Niner, Russell, Carla Alvarez, Doc Friday, Mary Jo Casey, and Achilles of Atlanta. Also, Big Kurtz lived in a tent for some reason. I kept my sentient arsenal with me, including the Stealth Suit Mark III, the Mark 117 prototype combat power armor, the Gecko Flamer, the K9000 Cyberdog gun, and Fido. We buried the Necronomicon in a secret location. We also had pets that guarded the town. Our bit Deathclaws left to form their own pack, a peaceful one I hope, but we still had dogs, including JT, Cooper, and Gabriel. The place was peaceful. Oh, and not one of us minded having some multi-party wild nights in our house, between Willow, Andrea, and I, with Niner, Jennifer, and Jamie staying the night to join in as well. Jealous Eric would be nearby, but he and Jamie had an understanding. He was welcome to join, but rarely accepted. In our party nights, I would often wear the stealth suit, during which she and I shared sensations, much to both of our enjoyment. Eventually, Willow adopted some wasteland orphans for us to raise, and we introduced them to Jamie's kid.
In 43% of observed cases, true lobotomites left alone will fight for dominance or inject bodily fluids into each other's orifices. Unsanitary.
Right you are. So, those were some of the happiest years of my life. Eventually, Doc Friday and Mary Jo Casey left to start a new life when the generations started passing us by. I wondered how long it'd be until thermodynamics got to them, but I chose to stay with my beloveds until the day they died. Eventually, that day came. Andrew and I, being Ares androids, had continued to watch as generations passed us by. It was so painful to watch those I loved wither with age and die. But I stayed beside them until they went, one by one. Miraculously, Willow was the last of us to go, and she told me I could later catch up when I was ready. I was brought to tears and I wept. When Andrew and I decided to leave our town, it was populated by our descendants, younger generations that knew of us more from history than experience. We were the rusty old-timers, and when we left, they sent us off with a celebration. That's when we arrived here, in Big Mountain.
You know, I'm having the most perplexing feeling squiggling through my biogel. I can't quite pin it down.
My body introduced Andrea to me. You should have seen the look on her face when she saw my brain in a jar. I explained to her that the life support for my brain had a voice modulator, allowing me to speak even in this state, while my body had a Big Mountain Tesla coil contraption that allowed it to relay a signal from my brain while still retaining some autonomy. We were still essentially the same person and shared the same memories, although sometimes I'd take Mentats, making me a little more pompous than my body would normally let on. By this time, our Ares android bodies were old, rusty, and broken. The think tank, you guys, tried to help us, but without access to any Ares technology, it just wasn't going to happen in time. I gave you our old, broken-down sentient arsenal, including the stealth suit. You're still working on fixing them, right? Well, I hope you succeed. Anyway, we stayed in Higgs Village for a while, but when our bodies were completely beyond repair, we were forced to finally confront death. I asked Andrea to undergo the think tank's brain removal process to survive, but she refused. Having a body was important to her, and she chose to die in it.
Oh, I see you and your brain reached a compromise. How pleasant.
No, Mobius, my body died with her. This tank here then became my last and final home. I received what would be the last signals and the last memories from my body. I theorized that the trans-dimensional symbiote within me also died, as there was no possible way to avoid death this time. If not, then maybe when my brain too fails, that will finally be it. All things come to an end. You guys may have been confused about why I refused to get a floating chassis like you all, but after everything I went through, I've lived a long time, yet I can't help but think, what if I had done things differently? I made every choice the best I could, but what about options of which I didn't even conceive? How could I be part of the think tank when Emma, Mandy, Sean, Sarah, Jennifer, Jamie, Niner, Willow, and Andrea all missed that opportunity? And even if I did, what is the point? I lost part of myself when my body died. I'm not whole anymore, and in a way that's fine. Nearly everyone I care about is gone. But I love those times we had together and the change we affected. So I think I really don't need to live forever. I've already lived. And I am surprisingly content. My time is near.
I see. You're in a predicament.
I suppose I might as well tell you now that I'm showing signs of neurological degeneration again. As you know, the centuries kind of do that to you, but The bullet in my brain decreased my lifespan much more than you all. I've gone through the servers. There's nothing we can do, and I'm going to accept that. So, Klein, Mobius, Boris, Dala, 8, and 0. I wish you the best with your continued work. House, look after them, okay? I'm sorry for what I did to you, but this might be your second shot. Try to care about the people this time, and there won't be another me to stop you. And someone say goodbye to Rex's Boston Terrifiers that are roaming all over the crater these days, alright? And look after the Sync's artificial personalities. You're all I have left before I die. And I want to ensure the rest of your lives can be as fulfilling as mine was. All things come to an end.
Thank you for what you have done. The helping, that is. We like that. It's 2-8. Until next time, then. Provided there is a next time. For any of us.